Hi. I want to talk to you about not only your relationship with money and how you feel about money and your thoughts, history, um, but actually your relationship with other people around money. Because you may have decided to work on growing your income or to getting rid of your debt or lowering your expenses. But there's other people in your life that need to be part of this decision making and part of this journey. For example, if you plan on working extra hours in your business to build your business, you may have somebody that needs to cover other parts of your commitments. You know, your commitment to your children, for example. Maybe your spouse needs to now watch your children more so that you're able to work more on your business. Or maybe you need to ask your mother to help you with something. Or maybe you need to work with your kids about, what you're going to spend on certain things. For example, a big one for my son was, our goal as a family was to purchase a house and to get out of debt. And so every time he was asking me for extra money for this thing or that thing, we had an understanding that, there was a limit to that. That in order to reach our mutual goal as a family, that my son had to sometimes give things up. He might not get to go to the movies every single Friday. Or he, in this case, he was old enough, I started giving him a set allowance, and then if he asked me for more money all the time, it was like, go to use your allowance. If, he has money in the bank, go use that. Or there's other things that we worked out, like he wanted to go to an extra week of camp in the summer, and he had the money in the bank that he had gotten for birthday gifts and Christmas gifts, so he used some of that money to fund that week, and he got to go for an extra week, and it didn't mess up our whole plan for, longer term, getting out of debt and saving up money for a down payment for a home. So the main thing to think about when you are thinking about others in your life, whether it be a spouse, a kid, a parent, even friends that you go out to do things with and they don't understand where you're coming from right now because they want to go somewhere expensive, all of those people that you need to also support your vision, you need to think about getting them to buy into the longer term goals that you have. So with in the situation with a spouse, you both may have a goal of having no debt in 4 years, for example. But other things keep coming in to distract you from that goal, right? So regularly meeting with each other, talking with each other about that. Like, hey, it's going to be so awesome when we're out of debt. Yeah, it stinks that we can't go out on date night, this week. Or it stinks that we're going to have a different kind of vacation experience than we normally have. We're going to go sleep in a tent instead of going to a hotel. Or we're going to have a smaller Christmas this year than we normally would. So it's really about communicating and getting on the same page as much as you possibly can with those people that are significant relationships in your life about your goals, about the main things that drive you. So if one of the main things, like in my case, one of the main things that drives me is family, right? And so that's really why I want to have a house. It's not because I like houses or it's some kind of status symbol. It's about my family. I want my children to be in a comfortable place and to not be squished into a tiny apartment. And I want our family to be happy and healthy. And one of the ways that can happen and all of our lives can be easier is, if we're in a space that really facilitates that. If we're in a place where we have room to have dinner together as a family, where we have room to have our own space, for each kid to have their own room and to, have our stuff shelved away in the basement so we're not tripping on it. I mean, all of these things that would allow us to be connected more as a family, because of this goal, right? So that's really the driving force behind the goal. And I think that's the case for everyone, right? I mean, people will say, well, I want to get out of debt so that, we can go visit my parents every year and not have to worry about it, right? There's different motivations for yourself, and sometimes your spouse might have different ideas about how to spend money. I mean, a lot of your beliefs about money came from how you were raised, and people pick up different things over the years and have different beliefs. I have clients that one member of the relationship is really concerned about not being in debt, having money in the bank. And the other person is more concerned about, experiencing life now and not letting time pass you by and spending money on experiences and on things, right? To enjoy life, right? And sometimes those views can be disconnected, right? So how do you bring that back so that you have that connection, so you are driving towards the same goals? You might have two different goals. I mean, you might want a boat, and your spouse might hate the kitchen because it's falling apart. And so how do you decide, what thing are we going to be working towards first, right? Is there a way we can meet both of those needs? And why? Why do we have these needs? Why do you care about the kitchen, and I care about the boat? What does the boat represent for me? What does the kitchen represent for you? It's really about bringing it back to what that emotional need is for us, what that important theme is for us, right? For me, my biggest theme is family. Like that is my thing. That's important to me. My kids, my parents, staying closely connected to family and friends that I consider family. That's my driving motivation for almost everything I do. So, if you can come up with 2 or 3 of these bigger goals, like where you want to be, and get into some kind of agreement with your partner or spouse about that, it can change the dynamic. I mean, there's a lot of issues that people struggle with. They argue with other people in relationships with them or their kids or whatever. Some of the things that come up a lot in the work that I do are equity. Well, he did that, so I want to do this. He spends too much money on energy drinks, so I should be able to get a manicure. What's that about? It's not a competition. We're in this together, and we're moving towards the goal. And so that kind of tit for tat. Well, if you spend $10, then I'm going to spend $10. Like that gets us into this cycle of, okay, well, I guess we need a credit card because we need to put $10 on the credit card for this, and then I also need to. So it's like double. Everything becomes double. So there's that issue about things needing to be exactly equal, and then this whole competition of like, well, if you're going to overspend, then I'm going to overspend. Like, I don't know what that's about, but you can see how that can happen sometimes. And then also these different values. What are your core values? What are the things that are really important to you? I mean, they talk a lot about this. There's house people and there's car people. And I think that's true to some extent. There's thing people and there's experience people. Like there's people that would spend hundreds of dollars to go to a concert, for example. And I personally, think of that as like, what's the point? Like waste. That's a waste, right? But like they don't consider that a waste. They consider that an experience, a memory that's being created, that something that you're able to enjoy at that moment in time, right? And I would be much more apt to go buy a piece of furniture than I would be to go, spend a bunch of money at a concert, right? So there's different values of what you think is important to spend your money on. Some people feel that debt is okay, and other people feel that debt is not okay. So that's a value, right? The whole thing around holiday spending is a big issue. How much do we spend on Christmas? How much, do we need to spend on your family, on my family, extended family, on the kids, on ourselves, right? Those are all, have all these values wrapped up in it. I think a lot of it comes from, your childhood. Did you not get a lot of presents as a kid, so now you want to do the opposite for your kids? Or did you have wonderful Christmases, so you want to recreate that for your children? I mean, there's all this stuff that comes into that, and it's really about deciding with the people in your life what your goals are and how are you going to get there. even if it means that you're not going to spend $4,000 on Christmas this year. You know, what are you comfortable with? Could it be 2,000? Could it be 1,000? Could it be 500? Like, what, you know, cut it back a little bit. You don't have to make a huge change where you go from, you know, you may have to if you can't afford groceries, but you don't have to go from $4,000 a year on Christmas where you're buying for every person in your extended family to 500 where you don't go to any Christmas parties because you don't want to, you know, buy the $20 gift that's required to go to be in the, you know, Santa swap or Yankee swap. I mean, you can incrementally make some of these changes with agreements with others in your life. Like, hey, if you always go out to dinner with some of your friends, maybe you say, hey, can we go out to dinner only, instead of once a month, can we go out to dinner every 3 months and just go to each other's houses the other time, because we're really trying to get out of debt and save money. And so, you know, you bring that up to other people in your life. You ask them to be supportive of what you're trying to do, whatever that means for you, right? And it may be that, you know, you're self-employed and your spouse has a job, and that's what you agree on. That is how you manage your finances. And that's what happens a lot, right? So maybe they want to be self-employed, but you wait, right? These are all decisions that you talk about and you make together. And you check in and just, you know, are you still okay with that? Like, you've been carrying the job thing while I've been doing this business for 2 years. Are we still good? Are you still good with me doing this because I need to do X, Y, Z? Or I'm not going to be home tonight because I have to go to this networking event. Can you handle this, right? It's a conversation, and it's a continual conversation, which goes back to the goals, the joint goals that you have. And that's it. That's the simplicity of it. Granted, it's you work at it, you keep doing it. It's really not totally simple because you may have differences in how you view things, and things that are important to you may not be important to your child or your parent or your spouse or your friends, right? But you need some kind of support. It's nearly impossible to do this kind of transformation without the people that are in your life being on board. Even if they're only a little bit on board, they need to be on board. So that's how you do it. And if you have questions, you can set up an appointment with me, and I'd be happy to talk through any of those issues that you might be having with working this out with a spouse or someone else in your life. Thank you.